thinks that was a wonderful introduction. I just want to second what Alex said in the previous presentation that GIS is freaking awesome. I mean, some of us have tripped over GIS and said, hey, that's what I want to do in my career. And some of us have gone to college for it and trained and learned, and that's what you do now. It's been really good to me. This is my 27th year. Uh, got a few gray hairs to prove it, but with you know our mission, we're evangelists and we love this stuff, and our goal is to not just learn how this stuff works, because there is a lot of technical stuff involved, but our job is outreach and getting out to your coworkers and to your organization. And one of the reasons I'm even saying all this is I want to bring Kevin McLeod up and introduce him. I don't have his bio, but if I had to say what his bio was, he's a super smart guy that knows a lot of GIS stuff. And you should get to know this guy, especially if you're one of our customers and you want help with getting GIS integration and pictometry integration throughout your organization. He's done it down at Chatham County, Georgia, currently lives in Savannah. And Kevin, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and your background? And you got to speak to the mic.
Hey there. So I was our GIS developer in my county down in Savannah for our city county GIS agency. The one thing I'll kind of throw out there is come see me if you're interested in customizing Web App Builder, Experience Builder, and some of your other sites. I have a GitHub repo and a GeoNet thread. I have like custom widgets like Robert Chetland. I have a Google Street View widget, as well as I developed my own pictometry widget long ago that's still in use in Colombia and several other places. So I was our web developer. So if you're curious about customizing things, I added, moving pop-ups and other things like that into Web App Builder. Very easy to do actually, and I have all the code on GitHub, so I can speak to that. But I joined Eagleview about 2 years ago, and I'm the equivalent of, the solutions engineer from Esri. I help implement and integrate our imagery into all these other products. For example, we can integrate the obliques into CityWorks and your CAD dispatch and other things like that. So, yep, Joe.
My voice kind of carried too, so just remind me to get back in front of the microphone when I need to. So welcome to our session. It may not necessarily be what you read here as to what we talk about. I apologize in advance. I kind of ramble and go in different directions. I might even start talking about our chickens and our eggs and how I compared our chicken eggs that we get at home to the eggs they serve here and the bacon and whatnot. But I can just hit the right arrows here, right? Okay. I did, and it didn't do anything. Let me try. There we go. So high resolution imagery, kind of a term that we use because back in the day, when you had 1 foot pixels and you were getting, that Nate photography, and it was like, oh, wow, this is great. Look at the clarity. And then you get 6-inch pixels from the state, and you're like, holy moly, this is great. We're doing 1/2-inch pixels now. And Kevin was at Chatham, said Chatham, Savannah. They actually have a consortium there called SAGES, and between the city and the county, they share resources, which is great. Not a lot of city and counties can quite do that handshake agreement. But and actually, one of the cool things when Kevin was just talking, the city of Greensboro was presenting yesterday, and they showed pictometry in this widget, that they embedded into one of their applications. And that's really cool because we don't fly for the city of Greensboro. We fly for Guilford County. And the way our stuff works is when you fly for a county, all the agencies within that county can use this stuff at no additional cost. So if you're a city GIS person, get to know your county. And if you like what you see here, if we make it to the end of the slide deck, uh, find out who your county person is and say, hey, we'd like to plug into your pictometry. We can use it for permitting, police, planning, zoning, just, same stuff that you use GIS for. Except now you've got another tool in your toolkit to be able to show them that they can use for looking at some pretty amazing imagery. I didn't want to embarrass Joe by showing his home, but this was a shot. And, the other thing, I'm not going to start complaining here, but the projector and the screen and the resolution doesn't do this purpose, serve this justice. These are half-inch pixels that, of course, when you put them in a PowerPoint, they de-resolve. When you shove them through a projector onto a screen like this, it gets de-resolved. Man, when you're looking at this on your screen, it's like, holy freaking moly. This stuff just jumps out and pretty amazing. But it's not just a picture. So if you don't know what pictometry is, you can measure everything. You can measure heights, distances. You can overlay your GIS. You can, figure out what the elevation is, all kinds of analytical stuff. Back when I worked for Esri, and I did have an agenda. Back when I worked for Esri, so we had to put these PowerPoints together like a week ago and upload them, and I already forgot what my slides were. Before we keep going, what's new? Hey, we got a bunch of new stuff, but I did actually put a slide in here as to what's old, and that's me. 27th year in GIS. I was in the Navy and very proudly served as a CB. Got a family. I'm in a country band. I'm telling you these things in case I start singing. You'll know why. I'm from Rockingham County. Who's from or near Rockingham County? Dang. You're from the other side of the tracks. That's awesome. And yeah, go Niners. I seriously have enjoyed this career, and I tripped over this career. I was in my second sophomore year of college, and arts and sciences undecided. It was like, what are you gonna do? I was a bartender. Like, I'm just gonna bartend the rest of my life. And I had this required course called GIS. So I went in the first day and I sat down, and there were 6 Unix boxes. There were Spark 5s, whoever goes back this far, running ArcInfo 603. But we sat there for 2 hours at the first day. I got out and I walked over to the drop ad building, and I was going to drop the class because it was too freaking hard. And the drop ad, nothing was online. So you go to the drop ad building, and there's a line around the building of people wanting to drop classes and add classes. So I stood in line for about an hour. I moved about 5 spaces, got out of line and finished the class. And this is what I do for a career. So you just never know how this is going to affect your life, but it has definitely affected mine in a positive way. But there is a bunch of stuff that's new. We call it 1-inch pixels, but most of the time it's half-inch. We have this new technology called super obliques, which I don't have a superhero costume to wear yet for the super oblique, man. But super obliques, and it's basically, if you know what mosaics are where you take a bunch of image frames and you put them all together to create a big mosaic of imagery. And most of the time with an ortho, you'll create a mosaic so you can have like a large Mr. Sid file or something so you can pan around continuously and not have all these layers in Arc Map or Arc Pro that you have to turn on and off. Well, we're doing mosaics now with the obliques. So now you can pan continuously on the obliques and zoom out and look at large scale oblique images. Pretty amazing. Uh, and they are now available. We're also in frequent ortho mode. So instead of capturing every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years for your county tax office or for your county GIS department, we're doing annual captures and in some cases multiple times a year. Mecklenburg County just bumped their frequency up so they can get a summer ortho 4-band so they can use it for vegetation analysis. But then in the winter, they do their leaf off capture so they can have no leaves on the trees and see what's on the ground for doing things like property assessment and addressing and whatnot. So it's really cool. Basically fly when you want to fly the resolution you want to fly, and however frequently you want to fly. So that's turned into what we call EV Cloud. So we have a subscription software as a service type model now. That's basically an order form. So you order what you want, like a pizza, check the boxes, and we provide you with that technology. So the result of this new technology, these new sensors that we have on our planes, are just pretty amazing. You can zoom in and look at cracks on the pavement, cracks on the sides of homes, and roof quality, and inlets and outfalls. And anyone in here have an MPDES project that just continuously goes on and on and on and on. We got a lot of organizations using it for verifying. And if you go out with a GPS receiver and you try to capture this stuff with a sub-meter GPS or a sub-foot GPS, you're looking at 1-inch pixels now. So you can actually look at this stuff and put a dot on the map, and it may be as accurate as the GPS receiver that you go out and stand there and average out 60 points for that 1 minute and go in and post-process it. So just pretty amazing stuff. And of course, I'll keep saying that because I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe in this technology, man. It's pretty amazing what you can get. Every sign, you can zoom in on this stuff. Kevin's always bragging about his imagery from Savannah, where you can zoom in and see every street sign, letter, stop sign. So for sign inventory, you can have. I interned at Mecklenburg County in '96, and you can get interns to come in and digitize. So if you want all your light poles, all your street signs, all your hydrants, you can sit them down at a desk with pictometry, and they can click away and get some pretty good attribute information, not just dots on a map. And that would be pretty valuable. Again, sorry for the resolution difference, but high resolution imagery is very useful for many things. And I won't read the list here, but when you're trying to look at change over time, who's doing impervious surface projects? Geez, that's just tedious and gnarly keeping up with what's there. But the return on that is your city or county generates significant revenue for that. It also doesn't recognize revenue if you don't keep your data up to date. So if you're growing and someone paves their driveway or puts in a tennis court, Joe, then we want to increase their fee because more water is running off their lot into the storm drain system. And if you can do more from your computer by using this imagery and not having to hop in a county vehicle and drive across the county to look at someone's property, driving is one of the most dangerous things we do, if not the most dangerous thing we do. I freaking hate it. Sorry, I don't like to use that word, but driving's awful. And it's because I got a 14-year-old son now that I'm continuously telling him how it's other people you have to worry about. I'm an excellent driver, but this guy coming towards me may swerve in my lane, which happened on the way to school the other morning. I won't drift here, but good gracious, driving awful. So, and I say this as in the things I hear from our customers. We're a vendor, so naturally we like to hear feedback from our customers and then tell you the one-liners that we hear from our customers, like, hey, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, that's always a really good thing to hear. But I was talking with Dare County, and of course, they have water challenges, logistical challenges for getting from the county office to the rest of the county. They used our technology for their last reval. If you don't know what a reval is, it's when everybody goes out from the county and looks at the property and comes up with new property values. They did 100% of their reval from their computers. They had like 3 properties they had to drive out to go to because they had to. So when I talk about change detection, you think, well, yeah, things change. You can let the technology help you figure out where the change is in your city or county. You're not having to pan through and look at the imagery and say, oh, they put a new building on their block and it's not permitted. There's a lot that it can't be just one county or city that runs into this. I'm sure it happens all over. And for tax purposes, if it's taxable, the tax office needs to know about it and update the tax bill, whether it's a new structure or an improved structure. We did our detached garage and turned it into an in-law quarters. I didn't think we needed a permit for that. My parents love it there. Or put an air conditioning unit in the side of the side window, and we've been doing that for 12 years. Not me. I'm just making this up. I would have asked for a permit. But imagine if you can use this technology to help you figure out this stuff, and you can rotate the imagery and look at it, see that air unit sticking out of the window, or HVAC, different things that you look for when you try to determine whether something's being lived in. So I'm going to brag a little bit on Guilford County. They're not even in the room, are they? All right, well, then they won't mind it if I tell a couple of fibs. Actually, this is one of their slides. They did a 2017 reval, and they used this technology, and they found $50 million of missing value from their tax bill, tax roll, tax database, CAMA system. They also found $3.5 million of property that was no longer there. People don't know you need to also permit when you take something down. And who else would like to know about that property no longer being there? 911, public safety folks. There's a law that trickles down from keeping your data current. But that value turned into about $340,000 a year of revenue that goes back into the county. And that's every year going forward. So when you think about, oh, this stuff costs too much, we can't do it. Just something like this shows, and Guilford County had to report back to their Board of Commissioners on how this stuff that they just bought helped them recoup some costs. And so that is pretty powerful there. And one of the things they did is they just something as simple. Who here works in a county? Okay, so you know your county has a tax office. The tax office maintains all the property characteristics, and one of the things they do is they create these sketches of the property. Well, these sketches aren't very accurate, but those sketches are used to drive the value of that property as far as that database goes. So all they did for this project was they took their property sketches and put them on top of the imagery, and they determined which sketches didn't match. And the ones that didn't match, how bad are they? Are they a major mismatch? Are they more than 100 square feet off? Are they a minor mismatch, which is less than 100 square feet? Are they residential? Are they commercial? So they took the major mismatches and they started with commercial, and they went and updated their sketches in their CAMA database. They found another $72 million in missing value just by doing that. Duh, it's a simple thing, right? Which sketches, but if they had to go into their CAMA system and look at all the sketches and try to figure out which ones were not up to date, it's almost impossible. So Guilford did some really neat things there, and that sketch verification generated another $560,000 of revenue for the county. So needless to say, they're pretty thrilled about how this technology has helped them. When you combine the sketch verification and the change detection, you're able to do some really neat analysis. And the other cool thing about this is you get it's all GIS data. So now you got building outlines for the whole county. What other department would love to have building outlines for the whole county? Fire, 911, planning. I don't know. I don't work at a county. I just know that there's probably a lot of value in some of the other departments from being able to use this data. So we combined this into a sketch verification and change detection. And then we started looking at the imagery and saying, we can do the same thing for impervious surface. We can use pixels of the imagery and use a little bit of AI and machine learning. We've got billions and billions of aerial imagery frames that we can learn from because we've been doing this since 1998. So we started this AI ML program. When I first started at Eagleview in 2017 was when we started this AI ML initiative, and it took us until early this year to roll it out. We just rolled it out because we wanted to make sure we do it the right way. When you're extracting an impervious surface layer and then you're using that to generate a fee for your citizens, you better make sure that stuff's defensible. So we've been doing that, and for time's sake, because we are running close to time, we created this process where the deliverables are basically providing you with either percent impervious or square footage impervious, whichever one you use for generating your feed. And it's delivering a raster and a vector-based layer. So when someone comes in and says, hey, I think my fee's wrong, I think you're overcharging me, you can pull it up and say, here's what we use to calculate it. In most cases, if not all cases, it's going to be low. So thank you for coming in. You're paying too low. Well, we're going to update your bill. Appreciate it. This is just an example of we're working with New Hanover right now, and we got their parcels and we got their imagery. The cool thing about it is this change detection that we did for property for structures rolls right into change detection on impervious. So you get imagery, you extract impervious, you get more imagery, you take that impervious, put it on the new imagery, and do change detection on it. So now you've got a new impervious layer. Pretty amazing when you can overlay that on your parcels and then apply that. I just did a little color coding here on the parcels to show the darker parcels had more percent change, more impervious was added to these darker shaded parcels than the ones that are not shaded darker, and can help you to like at least immediately see where your data is growing. Also helps you to do spot checking. So I got a few more slides here. Kevin, I'm going to call you up to talk a little bit about some of our integration. We got about 5 minutes. But if you could, and then take a question or two afterwards so we don't dig into. I'm intimidated here because Tripp presented yesterday on how to properly present. And here he is. How did I do, man?
So we have an API and you can integrate this oblique imagery. The critical thing to point out is this, we have a toolbar for Arc Pro and for ArcMap, no additional cost. You can digitize on top of this imagery. You can overlay layers, from your SDE, from REST. Of course, we have a viewer, our Connect Explorer viewers, like our ArcGIS Online. You can digitize in that viewer. And we have all these integrations for other third-party software like CityWorks and CAD software for 911. I do want to highlight though that you can digitize on this because I always tell people especially when all departments, including GIS, are there, that we're used to driving out surveying. That's dangerous and time intensive, as we've discussed. So we digitize in the office. Well, it is not the best use of GIS analysts' time to be tracing things on imagery. We can be doing analysis. Only we can do analysis. Anyone in other departments can draw an imagery. With Connect Explorer, you can actually draw points, lines, polygons, and export that out into a shapefile into the GIS ecosystem. And I know it's a tough sell, but if you can convince water department, public works, et cetera, to digitize data for you, then they can create map layers and we can get into the business of analysis. But all that to highlight, we have an open API on my site down in Savannah, for example. We share the oblique imagery publicly. You can see that sub-inch imagery in Savannah. Probably about half our customers share our obliques publicly. If you go to the parcel viewers for most counties. We also did 3D mesh this year in Savannah. It's amazing. It's the digital twin. So of course you can, freely rotate around. You can do view shed, line of sight, etc. in Arc Pro. You can display this in ArcGIS Online as a scene. So I would like to just reserve this time for questions. Shoot. Anyone?
We covered it pretty well. Savannah, are y'all generating that 3D mesh, or is the client customer having to do that to build that twin?
Build the twin. We build your twin for you at the factory. So if you have oblique imagery, so long ago, like back when I was at the city, I draped the ortho over the DSM, right? It's come a long way. So we build the 3D mesh from your oblique imagery. So if you fly with us, and you can do it at any time. Maybe you flew the oblique imagery last year, but this year you're like, we heard Jack Dangermond say digital twin about 1,000 times. We want that. We generate that 3D mesh for you. And like I said, you can display it in Pro and in web maps. Another useful thing is you can remove, say, one building, like a donut hole, and then plop in a proposed building to see what it would look like from, say, Revit or AutoCAD. And conversely, you can flatten the earth except for one building to visualize three-dimensionally. So that's useful for, historic preservation, for visual impact, for example. That's why Savannah did it. It's a very historic city. But yes, we generate that for you and deliver that to you as a SLPK, as well as some other formats. Other questions?
I was curious about how you QC after you do your machine learning to get your building footprints.
Building footprints. So the the building footprints are actually they look really nice because those are drawn by hand, whereas the impervious is ML, and the impervious is surprisingly good, and it's also intended to be rerun. It's kind of akin to training data and supervised classification. But like I mentioned, we're doing several projects here in the Carolinas, and it's surprisingly good. So the impervious is ML. The building outlines are actually drawn by hand. We use the obliques and the orthos to draw them, which is why they're so good. A lot of times, if you're looking at just the ortho, you wouldn't really be able to see all of the building, or at least confirm what it is. So that's why the buildings have nice, orthogonal, dimensions. And they're like, we do them in my county. I mean, they even got a structure on a property that I own, which is like, if you just had the ortho, you wouldn't see it. So the buildings are pretty good. But if you ever had any issues, we'd probably be willing to work with you. We're always, as a company, we're pretty willing to work with folks on data quality. Like if there are issues, whether it's the image, the raster itself, the imagery, the oblique, the ortho, or ancillary products.
Okay, thank you.